Okay, welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with Nate Cools talking about family and faith. Welcome, Nate.
Thanks, Ian. Glad to be here again.
Brilliant. So, what are we talking about today?
I would like to go over some steps, kind of a defining of how parents, myself being a parent, we try effective ways that we can go about changing the world so that our children have a higher quality of life. Because as parents, we all want this. We all want our children to have a higher quality of life, and even we ourselves have or have had growing up. Um, yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, I think we all have that experience of I think we talked about it in the other one, generational traditional formation. I know that's kind of maybe just in terms of faith, but I've seen that before in families where, one generation, especially when they hold on to the Catholic faith and they continue to hold on to the healing, like they have this one generation, it has less of a problem in a certain area than the previous one, and it kind of continues and there's more
Yeah,
peace. Um,
yeah,
God can work more in it. And some of the holiest, very, very holy people I've met, they've had multiple generations um, of Catholic family before them.
true. Yes, that it. I would actually say, in the same respect as generational trauma is a very real thing, and it does pass down every generation getting worse, as we see in society so commonly. The same can be said if you break that and you go in the opposite direction, hold tight to your faith and pursue peace. You become better than the generation before you. Your children also become better, and it builds the opposite direction as well. But it just takes effort.
Mm.
Yeah,
In Genesis, it talks about curses being passed down. Is it four generations or no seven? Was it seven
I,
generations?
I don't remember exactly, but I do remember the passage that yes, curses are passed down, but blessings also passed down.
Thousand
If
generations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so pretty much what I was hoping to discuss here as moving forward here is we all want to change the world. Well, we can't, in effect, go and change the politicians and change society around you and all of these things. You must refer to the words of Mother Teresa, who said, "If you want to change the world, go home and love your family."
Wow, that's
So,
amazing.
yeah, incredibly powerful because in the home you do have control over what happens. So if you want to change the world, you have to start in your own home. And if you want peace in your children, you have to move one step even further back from that. The children will never be at peace if there's not peace in the relationship. If the parents are fighting all the time, children can't have peace. So there has to be peace within the relationship. Well, so many people in the world, they say, that's great. I understand that. What is peace? Well, peace literally means you are content, you are not fighting, you are not anxious. That's all it is. And that should be between the couple. And in order to get that, you have to take it even a step further. There cannot be peace with another human being if you don't have peace in your own heart. So, yeah, go for it.
No, just saying this is such a huge thing. Think of Satan's attack on the family. How does he do that? Um, External problems, projecting that onto one another, and just if you break down, if you cause a divorce, for example, that can take down a whole family, that can attack children. So it's like there are so many people who struggle with this. If half of marriages in the whole world are ending up in divorce, then obviously it's because of a breakdown of peace between the husband and wife.
Yes. Yes, it's a breakdown of peace. It's a lack of ability to love each other. As Christ says, love your neighbor as yourself. You literally have to have an equal love of your spouse as you have of yourself. Well, that is a very big problem. That brings me to my next point. People don't love themselves. Nobody in anxiety, depression, suicide, like people don't know how to love themselves. Not in the woke agendas, body positive, regardless of if you're dying of obesity, not in that way of loving yourself, but loving God within yourself. And so, in order to love God within yourself, so that you can have peace in that relationship, we have to take it even one step further back. We have to understand that men and women love and reciprocate love differently. My wife and I actually were discussing it this morning, and she said how we just talked this out helped her understand why the dynamic works between us much, much better. We've been married 16 years, and we're still figuring these things out with each other.
What's some of the biggest things you've learned over those years about each other and how to move from like arguments and disagreements to peace? Like what does that kind of look like?
Well, the first thing is have thick skin and compassion towards your spouse. That literally meaning you have to be able to humble yourself. You have to take the pride out of yourself, and this goes for both spouses, enough to not take anything personally when the other is expressing their feelings. And then your spouse has to have the same. And when you speak with them, you have to speak with compassion, understanding they will take it differently than you probably intended because they're a different person. So don't take it personally, and always speak with love, understanding they're different.
Yeah, it's kind of like, of course, the other person's going to be blind to what you see. And
right,
because they can't see some part of themselves. And also you're communicating it in English, I assume. And it's you can't capture something like all those aspects about somebody through language. Like it's just, it can just end up in miscommunication, and it's
right. And that's where the thick skin, what I'm referring to, don't get personally offended if something comes across offensive when they're trying to express themselves. It's not a personal attack, it's a miscommunication. So that's there. And so the discussion this morning with my spouse, we were discussing how psychology says, and has been proven throughout time, men require respect to feel loved, and women require love and affection. We don't require the same thing in the same way. So in the conversation, my wife was saying, I found peace, this is what she was saying, by learning to love God within myself and love myself. That doesn't mean accept that I am and never strive forward, but accept that where I am is good, who I am is good, and then move forward from there. So loving myself taught me peace. And I was like, well, that's awesome. That's not how I found peace in myself. I'm a man. Men kind of don't love themselves. They just don't. It's not really a thought, but men tend to think along the lines of what their actions. What do I do? And they love those actions if they do right actions. It's not an intrinsic love of self. So I learned to overcome years of manic depression and high anxiety and all of this most of my entire life by not accepting myself and loving myself. That's not how my brain works, and I would think that's not how most men's brains works. I love my wife, and when my wife is loving me, I can love myself through my wife.
I know, yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, even just
Yeah,
in a relationship or when you're loved by others, even with friends, I feel a lot more at peace when I get exactly what you're saying. That's really interesting.
yeah. It's women have to learn to love themselves for who they are, but a man loving their friend or their spouse is loving himself by loving the other person more. And then that brings him peace because he realizes he is lovable because someone else is showing him love. It's very fascinating, and it's a completely different dynamic coming from both spouses. But it brings peace to each other. It brings peace to each individually, and then you find peace together. Then moving that into the family unit, if the parents are not fighting all the time and they're at peace as a couple, the children calm down, they relax more, and they find peace. Well, now you have a very, very strong family. Your family is not traumatized and anxious all the time. So as they grow, they move out into the world coming from a place of strength, coming from a place of love and peace. Now they are changing the world. As we parents wanted to change the world, the children are now changing the world because we started in the home.
Yeah, just like what Mother Teresa said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're not out there fighting politicians to change the world. We're changing the world by finding peace in ourselves and in the relationship as a man and wife. And that brings that peace and strength into the family. And then the family changes the world. Family is the microcosm of all of society. If you have strong families, you'll have a strong society. If you have weak, broken families, well, look at our society. You just said it. 50% divorce rates worldwide.
If you think about Satan's attack on the family, why is he attacking the family? Maybe it's because he's attacking humanity in general. And actually, the family is the core part of humanity. And if you can attack the family, take a family down, you stop all the potential goodness that can come from a family.
Yes, absolutely.
Never thought of that before. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole of society collapses when the family unit breaks down. It was Marx, the famous communist, who actually wrote, if we want to take down Western culture, we start at the family level and we take the woman out of the home and we institutionalize the education of the children away from the father.
Did he say that?
It's written in his, I don't remember how many steps that he wrote down of how you take over Western culture.
Okay.
It's
wow.
it's in his authors, like he authored this. This is how you do it, step by step. Remove the woman from the home, institutionalize education of the children away from the father, and now the family unit is broken. Now everything falls apart.
Mm.
And look where we are. Look where we are. We have people who don't even know what their own gender is.
It's actually quite nice to know that even, like you said before, you get this exterior pressures and stuff like that. I grew up in a family where I went to day school. My mum, I think she did. No, she was a full-time mum, but I can imagine if she was working, but we still managed to find peace. And I always saw that through my family's faith, but massive struggles still, and still going on until this day. But what would you say to a family like, okay, like I've got two questions. One is to a family who they're really struggling right now. There's just a breakdown of peace in the family. What would you say to them, like practical steps to bring the husband and wife together if it is from them? And my second question is, you were talking before about we can only bring peace to the family if we have peace ourselves. How do we have that peace ourselves? And how does that relate to the interior life?
Well, firstly, my heart goes out and prayers up for any family that's struggling. That is the worst. Loss of peace in the home is one of the worst experiences you can have. And so that's terrible. And I will share a method that my wife and I have been using for many years, which is actually taken directly from the rule of St Benedict on how to make decisions, how the abbot is to make decisions for his monks. And the word abbot comes from Abba, which means father. So again, relates back to family. The father, this is an excellent rule for the father to use in his home. So we started using that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started using that, and it works excellent. So let's say we have massive bill, and that's what's causing, you can't pay your mortgage or whatever, and that's what's causing the fighting or the bickering in the home. A decision has to be made. What are we going to do? Do I need to get another job? Do you need to go sell the extra car? Whatever. But you're fighting with your spouse. What we do, my wife and I, is we define the problem, whatever that problem is. Let's just use bills, because that's the number one thing that people get divorced over is finances. And we say, the problem is we're always short for rent. Okay, that's the problem. First, you have to define it. Okay, step one, define the problem. Step two, after the day's chores are done, come together, even if you're angry, and say, please pray for me, one to the other, and then walk away. And I usually go outside and I go for a walk, and I talk it out with God. I bring the problems out of my head, out into verbal speech before God. Like man to man. I'm like, this is what I'm struggling with. This is why I'm not at peace with it. My wife, she has her own method where she prays, she talks, she says the rosary. I go out for a walk. Then in that talk with God, I specifically ask what step I should take next, whether that's get another job, sell an extra vehicle, whatever that has to be, to solve this problem. I come back, we kiss each other goodnight, and we go to sleep on it. We sleep on it. We wake up in the morning, we say our morning prayers, get the kids breakfast. So step 3 is sleep on it. Step 4, step away in the morning with a cup of coffee with the wife and discuss what conclusions we each came to individually on what's the appropriate next step.
Oh, great. That's from the rule of St Benedict. So you go away and you discern.
You take it to God. Individually, you take it to God, and then you come back together, and the both of you together make a decision based off of the answers that you came to from taking it to God. And I'll tell you what, we've been doing this close on to 10 years. I have not once come back from the next morning from this and come back to the wife, and we haven't come to the same conclusion.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Not once. Like I said, almost a decade of doing this practice, and not once have we come back in the morning and discussing over coffee what is the next step, that we have not come to the same conclusions individually when we each took it to God in our own way.
Mm.
Because that's respecting each other. Each individual has to take it to God in their own way. It's giving each other space, so the emotional rise causing anger or frustration on whatever topic it is has a chance to cool down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also just bearing your soul to God, saying, Lord, I don't know what the right course of action is. Show me what I'm supposed to do, and surrendering to his divine will.
You're just putting God right in the middle of it. That is really fascinating. Just that little technique for all families. Like, even say if they don't believe in God, you can even say to them, just try praying. Like, actually, a lot of people pray when there's a crisis, and some of the biggest crises are in the family.